Good morning, everyone. Our operating report starts on page number 12, and the Long Island Railroad on-time performance goal for 2010 is 95.1%. Our on-time performance for May of 2010 overall was 93.52%, with the AM peak finishing at 90.62%, the PM peak finishing at 91.59%, and the off-peak ending at 94.43%. Our year-to-date on-time performance ending on May 31st, overall on-time performance is 93.60%, with the AM peak finishing at 92.86%, the PM peak finishing at 91.01%, and the off-peak ending at 94.24%. There were 4 100% rush hours during May, 3 in the morning, 1 in the evening. Year-to-date, there have been 25 100% rush hours, 16 in the AM and 9 in the PM, and our AM car availability was met each day in May. The mean distance between failures for the total fleet during the month of April was 130,898, which exceeded our goal of 110,000 miles. And please note the 1 month lag in reporting. That was for April. The main distance between failure goal was exceeded in the M7, M3, DE, and total diesel fleets. We fell short with the C3 and with the DM fleet. And regarding major events affecting on-time performance, the most significant event happened in the morning rush hour at Penn Station on May 19th, and it resulted from an Amtrak operating rules violation that is alleged at this time. It appears that Amtrak train number 183 operated through a stop signal. The MTA police provided support during 2 rather successful extra service events. The operation of 38 extra trains to handle 19,373 customers to the Belmont Stakes, and the extra trains we operated to handle the added demand caused by the Puerto Rican Day Parade. Our safety overview through April of 2010, reportable employee accidents decreased by 15%, customer accidents were reduced by 13%, rail accidents are down by 64%, and overall fire incidents are down by 35%. This concludes the operating report for May, and I'm ready for any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Jim?
Thanks for that report, Ray. Again, just trying to get acclimated to some of the different reporting terminologies. What is it on the events causing 10 or more delays on page 16? What is the situation that is described by heavy customer loading system-wide as a cause for delay? It sounds like that's something we would like.
Well, yes, but sometimes it really exceeds our ability. In this particular instance, it's the Memorial Day holiday weekend, and certain trains, we
21st of May.
The 21st of May. Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the 28th. The 21st of May was in advance of another good weekend. So prior to the Memorial Day weekend, so we had some extra travel. 14 late trains altogether.
And that would be because people were, the trains were overcrowded, we didn't have enough equipment out there, or what's the situation?
It's the weekend situation where it does tax our ability to provide service. We do have multiple extra trains, we do have larger concerts, but sometimes people travel in such a small time frame on a Friday evening or a Sunday evening that it exceeds our ability.
It seems to be more in the evening, which means people leaving early. And I don't know, I think if you look at Jamaica Station and Penn Station, sometimes, there's a very tight window for a lot of trains arriving and departing, and all you need is for one train to be only a few minutes late, below the 5:59, for you to cause a cascading failure with the railroad. And all you need is a few more, heavy passengers. I think earlier in the peak. That's why I think the railroad does run often on these weekends extra trains earlier.
That's right, and also too, you are correct, Ira, in that most of our extra loading delays occur on trains that operate between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m.
Hence rush hour.
Yeah.
No, that's the early peak.
Yeah. And to your point also, we do at times operate what we call an advanced schedule, a holiday eve schedule, whether, it's the eve of like Memorial Day or the 4th of July, or it's a Jewish holiday, and people we know are leaving early before the rush hour.
Well, I think it speaks to the railroad has a very tight, in a way, tight operation in many spots, and congestion can be a problem, almost like it is on transit as opposed to Metro North. You have some issues, and we noticed in looking at some of the delays, canceled trains, which I talked to you earlier, but that the railroad has a serious congestion issues in the morning and both the evening.
Yes.
Jim, are you?
I just want to add to that. The other phenomena that all of us have seen is the growth of people traveling with luggage. It is a tremendous impact on Friday peak hour service. The amount of people traveling with luggage that then take extra time boarding. We want them to board safely. We want them to watch the gap. So we are going to have some boarding issues in those crowded conditions.
Thank you.
Ira, did you have another question?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the dual modes. This is, I think, the first month they've been this low in a long time, and the rolling average is meeting goal. I just wonder if there was something that came up with the dual modes that made it so low.
No,
this month.
It's really the same. The same
Yeah.
amount of prime fares that we had the corresponding month in the previous year. It's just that the number varies greatly with 1 or 2 prime fares either way.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay. There's no because I mean there's been software changeouts and some of these other things that seem to have solved some of the problems, but we're just having. Well, I'm hopefully it's just a bad month.
Yes. Yeah, it's nothing systemic that we know about that we haven't been dealing with.
Okay. The last thing is I notice we have. I mean I know there's an effort to sort of make us look at Metro North Long Island the same way. Because our Long Island statistics is events causing 10 or more delays, whereas Metro North does 5. And I'm just wondering if, we should look at that and probably do the same kind of standard, just to give us the same kind of reporting. And if there's a reason for 10, maybe there's a reason for 5. I don't know what it is, but I think we should look at that. And
Probably
some
historical.
And I also think
it's tradition. There's some other things in here that I think Metro North should be doing.
it's probably the density of our operation as well.
But we will look at that.
And actually, what I'd love to see is rather than this is okay, but events causing delays for passengers, more than 1,000 passengers or something like that would probably be a better way of looking at it. But I don't know how we have to look at how many passengers on our trains and things. And that's
Right.
what the PCAC is looking at. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. Just one other thing is looking at the monthly on time and year to date. Ray, is it on page 13? Is it likely that we're a victim of averages here, and that the year to date the gap will close as the summer and fall comes in because on time will be better than our goal, and so the gap between our year to date and the goal will narrow?
That would certainly be our intention, to work to identify, analyze the issues and to address them so we can operate at a greater rate to improve. One issue, of course, is the winter weather. That's 25% of our added delays. So, and then we'll work on some of the other issues we've identified.
I do want to note that Ray and I met with the general manager of the Amtrak operation at Penn Station. We agreed that we would do a more focused meeting with their engineering staff to look at lessons learned in terms of events they seem to be having at Penn Station, and then project ahead the track work and signal work that's coming. There's a major intensity of our operation at Penn, and we of course need Amtrak in its best shape. They are undergoing a lot of tunnel work right now and station work. That's had some impact on their signal system, some reliability issues. So we're going to have a more focused meeting on both, what work they've been doing, what we could have done to assist, and then projecting forward what they have coming. So that would be one of our efforts, again, to focus on how to get our on-time performance back up.
Financial and ridership report.
Good morning. The finance report for the Long Island Railroad begins on page 34. That report includes the April ridership figures, but as has been customary for Kim and I over the last few sessions, we'll talk about the preliminary May numbers. Hopefully, many of you saw the email we had sent out. We tried to use for the first time a consistent format, side by side, the two railroads' ridership numbers for May. For the month of May, for the Long Island Railroad, our total ridership was down 0.8%, 0.8%. That's by far our, believe it or not, our best month of the year. Just as an example, in February, our ridership was down 4.5% for that month, so it's only down 0.8 for May. Commutation was down 2.9%. Non-commutation was actually up 2.2%. And again, that's by far our best month of the year. One segment, leisure travel, was up 30% compared to May of 2009. Year to date, we've carried 32.7 million riders. The total ridership is down 2.5% through May, but it had been down 2.9% through April. So again, you can see that overall the trend is working in a positive direction. Despite all of that decline, the 2.5% decline, we're still beating our budget estimates by 0.2%. So again, that shows that we had conservatively factored in this reduction. Commutation is down 4% through May, again, largely due to the declines in the employment rate in the city. And non-commutation is virtually right on budget through May. Moving on to the budget side of the house, on revenue, we've generated or collected $229 million of revenue, which is slightly unfavorable to budget. Most of that is 1.8 million of the 2.9 million unfavorable side is due to the timing of capital project activity, which we expect will change as the year moves on. The remaining 1 million in shortage is due to slightly lower revenue from fares and a decline in advertising revenue. Moving to expense, through April, our total expenses were $565 million, which was $28 million or 4.7% favorable to the budget. On the labor side of the house, we were $6 million favorable. 1.6 million of that was due to straight time surplus, primarily attributable to the existence of vacancies in the department, in the agency. A particular note on overtime, Helena has really asked us financially to focus and operationally to focus on two key areas in particular, overtime and inventory and materials. So on the overtime side, you'll note in the report that year-to-date we're 1.5 million unfavorable to budget in overtime, but I should point out that the budget assumes an 11% reduction over 2009. So when you compare our current spending to last year's, we've actually spent 4 million less in overtime year-to-date than we had last time. And hours worked are down 11% compared to last year. This is through April. May was even a better month, which we'll be able to report next time. Non-labor expenses are $16 million favorable. I'd say the biggest factors there are on the contractual services side, which is primarily timing. But again, inventory is a very important issue, and we're $5.8 million favorable in materials. And some of that, again, is due to timing, but a lot of it is due to the railroad really revisiting its reliability-centered maintenance program and better adjusting anticipated usage to need. Of course, usage, you can still have lower usage but spend because you're still ordering, and that's reflected on the cash side. And I'm proud to say that at least year to date, our inventory is relatively flat, so that's also a good sign. To conclude, the fare box operating ratio was 42.9% through April. That concludes the finance report.
Any questions on finances? If not, capital program?
Yes, I am very pleased to report that with regard to bridge assets, an area of focus at the Long Island Railroad, we completed the Powder Creek Bridge and Hog Island Channel Bridge replacement project. The project included two 80-year-old multi-span timber steel bridges on the Long Beach branch. This replacement of Powell Creek Bridge in Oceanside and Hog Island Bridge in Island Park included new concrete reinforced steel pipe piles, pre-stressed concrete bridge decks and abutment, new safety walkways, and track resurfacing, and as well as an improvement to the channel bed. We distributed a little handout, very dramatic pictures. You can see that staging the work certainly had some challenges. The project's budget was $24.5 million, and work was completed on time and within budget. In order to construct the bridges, approximately 150 steel piles had to be installed prior to fabrication of the bridge decking. Over a period of 12 weekends, these two locations had preliminary new supporting structures installed while maintaining the existing bridges and train service. The last 2 weekends, the railroad demolished the old bridges one track at a time and installed the new pedestrian concrete bridge deck. We want to thank the surrounding communities, Oceanside and Island Park. They were very supportive. We want to thank the residents and the communities because there were inconveniences, there were noise, there was extra equipment around, and they were very cooperative and very helpful. Our goal was to complete the bridges in time for Memorial Day weekend, and we succeeded in that. So I want to thank our force account labor. Kevin Tomlinson is here, who headed the project, and it really was an outstanding project and one that needed to be completed. Our monthly report does include the regular project reports. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address those.
Yeah, Helena, what is the track resurfacing? Is it like grinding the track smooth or something? Or?
Track resurfacing is a major project at Long Island Railroad to make sure that the track alignment is correct. It uses tamper equipment, and it will actually lift the track, shake the ballast to bring it up, and make sure that the track is aligned correctly. It's I have to say, I happened to have been out on a tamping project on Friday. Very complicated geometry and big computer functions that are built into the tamping equipment that allows the operator of the equipment to get the exact height that we need and the width.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Jim.
I have to say that the Powell Creek replacement looks phenomenal. Beautiful job. Beautiful job.
Thank
Amazing
you.
how difficult sometimes it is to do it when you can't shut down the system. Which that's the, you have to run your regular service and yet fix the bridge at the same time, and that's what takes a long period of time because you're not operating all the time in that regard. So it's a very difficult. So everyone should be very congratulated in that regard. You have one information item?
We do, and that is a staff summary on page 59 that highlights our Rail Activation Committee, and it's a working group that we formed with MTA Capital Construction and Metro North, and I'd like to thank Mike Horodniciano and Howard Permit for helping to facilitate this effort. As the staff summary describes, we need to focus on the railroad's operation of new service into Grand Central, and this will be a multi-year effort as systems come online and get commissioned. We want to make sure that we have the right input by Eastside Access staff as well as Metro North. which has operated out of Grand Central and has, tremendous knowledge of the facility. We want to ensure that our operations mesh where they touch each other appropriately. So we've put a structure in place that will help us formalize that approach. Long Island Railroad's responsibility will be to produce a rail activation plan. The plan will be multifaceted. It'll be a growing document over a number of years. And as each element of the plan comes forward, the working group at a staff level and then at a senior level will review it and be able to develop a record of concurrence on the way we will operate. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions on this piece? Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
let me add, I think it's really an important step to coordinate between the railroads and capital construction. There will be many interfaces between Metro North and Long Island Railroad as the service starts and as it's operated. So this is a really good way to bring the people together to plan accordingly for it.
Yep, absolutely. Good. Okay, anything else on Long Island? If not, Howard, Metro North.
Good. Thank you. Good morning. A couple of comments this morning. Let me start by saying today was the day that Metro North, is implementing its service reductions. So as of this morning, we had two major elements. We had a conscious reduction program. We reduced and this has been a multifaceted program, but basically today being the major step, we will have 10% of our weekday trains will run with fewer cars now. Today, about two-thirds of those are implemented. We had previously done a third in April. Last year, we had reduced the weekend consists. So that's a major reduction. We have communicated it to our passengers. We will be monitoring it very carefully. We've communicated to people that the most likely opportunity for seats will be at the rear of the trains coming in to New York. Also that people will need to use the middle seats to remove their luggage from that. And we also will be monitoring this very carefully to make sure we are meeting the higher standards that you adopted last year. This is at a time, you'll hear a little bit later, ridership is now increasing on Metro North, so we have to be very careful to make sure we're implementing this correctly and that we still maintain, when we fill out our consists, our 95% loading standard. The other change is that this evening we will be reducing some train service on the Hudson and Harlem lines. On the Hudson line, 6 trains get combined into 3. This is leaving Grand Central between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Basically, the upper Hudson trains will now make the stops on the lower Hudson zone, so it'll be a longer train ride for people. And on the Harlem line, we have eliminated 1 train and combined 2 trains into 1. That's between the 7 and 8 o'clock time period. So that will then, for this round, this was the major implementation, and that would then we'll complete that. The other thing I do want to mention will happen before our next meeting is we'll, on July 7th, be reducing ticket offices in Westport, Fairfield, New Canaan, and Yonkers. And we'll also be reducing our hours of our call center, which right now is 24/7. We'll now make that from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And that will all be done on July 7th. The other...
Still 7 days a week?
Yes, but just no overnight, Nancy, no overnight coverage anymore. Second, what I'd like to do is I do want to recognize a couple of Metro North employees to come up who will be retiring this month. It'll be their last meeting. All of them have had many years with Metro North. Many of them had years well before Metro North, looking at the years of service, and I think at least the Metro North Committee knows them. So let me start with Mark Campbell. Mark is our Senior Director of Safety. He will be leaving after 37 years retiring of service. So Mark, would you come on up, please? Susan, do you want to join us? Mark,
You look so remarkably young.
Each year is 2.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mark has been, just to, for those who are not as familiar with him, Mark has been a key player in our safety program and our security program over the years, and has been, along with our operating division, a key driver in bringing our injury rates way down over the past years. Second person I'd like to bring up is George Oakvat. George, would you come on up, please? Just let me say a word on George. George has been at Metro North and his predecessors for 40 years. George is our acting senior director of customer service, and has been a major player in all our customer service initiatives over the past 10 years, and particularly is the person who brought train time to fruition and in existence. So, George, thank you for your years of service. And then finally, he's going to switch from being the photographer to get his picture taken, is Frank English. Frank has been with Metro North for 26 years and will also be retiring this month. And so, Frank, would you come on up, please, and get this as well? Yeah, don't forget that, Frank.
Oh, that's heavy.
Okay, thank you. With that, I think we will then move to our status of operations. Bob Leblong.
Status of operations is outlined on page 68 in your agenda book. In May, we operated at 98.4%, which was above our goal of 97.7%. All of the major categories were above goal for the month. Of the 17,623 scheduled trains, 283 of those trains operated late. 99.8% of the trips were completed, and 98.6% of our trains operated with a full consist. Of special note, of the 31 days in the month, we did not operate below 95% on any day. In fact, we only had 2 days where we were below 97% for the month of May. On the West of Hudson, that's outlined on page 72 in your agenda book. West of Hudson service operated at 97.6% in May, which is above the goal of 96.3%. 41 trains operated late out of 1,678 scheduled. The Port Jervis line operated at 97.2 against a goal of 95.2, and the Pascack Valley operated at 97.8 against a goal of 97. And in May, 99.7% of our trips were completed. And of special note on West of Hudson, we had a stretch of 12 consecutive 100% days on the Port Jervis line, and year-to-date we have had 62 100% days for the system west of Hudson. MDBF, that is outlined on page 74 in your agenda book. For the month of April, our MDBF was 166,295 against a goal of 110,000. Year-to-date, we are at 152,854. For the month, all fleets were above goal except for the M4s and the Genesis, which did not make goal. And that is it. I'll field any questions if you have them.
Any questions? If not,
Yeah. About the Genesis, is there some reason why the Genesis is I mean, it seems to be significantly below goal.
I didn't think it was significantly, but goal 35,
right.
It was 23. We have had some compressor problems with the Genesis. We have a compressor program that we're going to start later on this year and next year. We have had some failures, but
Is Amtrak having the same?
that I'm not sure of. I'd have to check with
It's
them.
almost the same. It is
Yes,
the same
it is.
locomotive.
Almost, it's the same.
It
Yes.
is the same. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
any other questions?
Okay.
Not?
Kim?
Good morning. April's financial report begins on page 81, and I will provide some highlights from this report. For the month of April shows another good month with underspending in expenditures, strong other operating revenues, and a rebound in ridership and fare box revenues. The month of April net deficit of $51 million is favorable to the budget by 14%. Year-to-date April net deficit of $217 million is also favorable to the budget by 14%. And year-to-date cash subsidies of $114 million is favorable to the budget by $60 million. What this equates to is $58 million less in subsidies from MTA, $7 million less in subsidies from CDOT, and offset by use of available cash balances. These are all due to, once again, higher cash receipts, lower cash disbursements, and use of available cash balances. The underspending in expenditures happens to be related to the same trends we've seen all throughout earlier parts of this year. Other operating revenues also continue to be favorable for the same reasons related to advertising revenues and GCT net retail revenues, running 14% favorable. Farebox operating revenues, results for the month, and year-to-date April are both 3% favorable to budget as a result of our higher ridership. What I want to point to you is on page 96. What this does show is the result of all these favorable trends and experience is that they're generating favorable year-to-date April farebox operating ratio. It is 55.4% year-to-date April, which is 6% favorable to the budget. 1.4 of the 6% favorable to budget is due to higher farebox revenues, and 4.4 is due to lower expenditures. These trends are also transparent in the cost per passenger year-to-date April. Your cost per passenger is $11.70, and is favorable to budget by $1.31. 54 cents is due to higher ridership, and the remaining 77 cents is due to lower expenditures. So we will conclude this report with ridership, and then I'll be available to answer any questions you may have.
Good morning. The April ridership information is in for Metro North is in the book, starting on page 97. As Mark mentioned, we had emailed out late last week the preliminary May results. I'm just going to talk briefly about the preliminary May results. For Metro North, May ridership was up 2.8%. Both commutation and non-commutation ridership grew in May. Commutation ridership was up 1%. Non-commutation ridership grew 5.3%. These are all versus last year. Year-to-date, with the growth we saw, the slight growth in April and the growth we've seen in May, now year-to-date we're just slightly below 2009 levels. Overall ridership for the year is down 0.1%. Commutation is down 1.5%, and non-com for the year is now up 1.9%. Any questions about May or the April details?
Yeah.
Non-com.
I have a couple.
What's happening?
Susan,
It's okay, go ahead.
Great, Jim.
What do you think?
What's happening on what's happening on non-com? I mean, that looks like such a good news story.
Yeah.
Is it a result of something you're doing, we're doing, or?
Well, we're providing 98%. We're doing what we've been doing all along. I think this is a clear sign. I mean, the quality of service is high. We had good weather in May. One thing that's a piece of that is the fact that Yankees East 153rd Street opened Memorial Day weekend last year. This year we had games throughout May. So that's a piece of the non-com number. Now as we move into June, we're going to have, I'll say, a more apples-to-apples comparison because it was open for all of June last year. But since it opened in late May, the early weeks of May, there was a bump there from
Jim,
some home games.
let me just add that to what Bob said. I mean, this is the continuation of years and years of a trend of building these markets. And it's a combination of the service that we've added. As the economy turns, you see the commutation numbers turning, but also the non-coms are increasing as well, as people do come into the city more for work trips once in a while on the weekday, on the weekends. But as you know, because I know you ride the trains and we've talked, we have extremely high volumes of people who ride Metro North on the weekends coming into Manhattan, and as well as going out. as well as going up and down the line. And so these trends are really what we've seen for the past 15, 20 years. It's just a continuation.
Jim, anything else? Susan?
Couple of comments. First of all, I recognize how much effort both railroads have put into controlling expenses. And these reports are especially rewarding to see how much you've managed to control. I know it's been difficult, and it's really good to see. Some of Mark's report indicated the same thing, and it's hats off to both of you, and keep up the good work because we've still got a ways to go. I really appreciated the way you described how, in actual cents and dollars, Kim, the fare box operating ratio broke out into savings, because it helped me to understand what role the increase in ridership plays. Because I'm always interested in the ridership by line, and the interesting thing to me is when I look at Mark's ridership data and the West of Hudson ridership data, those two demographies tend to track each other better than Metro North versus Long Island Railroad. So what I'm going to say is I'm hoping that we see the same increase in ridership at Long Island Railroad and on West of Hudson that we're seeing on East of Hudson, because I'm hoping that we're in a turnaround place right now. Although it's true that most of our savings has been through belt tightening and good controls by the railroad, the impact of ridership is always there and always has a very beneficial effect. So let's hope for a good economy for all of us. Sorry.
That's okay.
Right.
Well said.
Yeah, I was going to say the same.
Well said.
Exactly right. In terms of the impacts of ridership, Susan, as we've said. Next is Tim McCarthy, who's going to give the capital program report.
Good morning. The report begins on page 109 in your book. Just a couple of real brief highlights. Our concrete tie program on both the Hudson line between CP 61 and CP 72, basically Beacon and Poughkeepsie, and New Haven line on track 3 between 229 and 232 at Stamford has been completed, and both of those tracks were returned to service last week. And on the Hudson line, the temporary platforms at Scarborough and Tarrytown are starting to be dismantled, and we've opened up the southern portion of the new platforms at both of those stations. We're currently using bridge plates, but track 3 will go back into service on August 1st on those, and those two platforms, as well as Ossining, will be fully in service at that time. And I'll try to answer any questions.
Any questions with regard to the Metro North Capital Program? If not,
Okay, then Mark, your final safety report.
These are results through April, and I'll summarize them briefly. They begin on page 114. This continues to be overall a favorable story. Employee injuries were down 27% through April, 58 this year compared to 80 last year. Our lost time and restricted duty injuries adjusted for work hours are down 17%. And our FRA reportable cases, again adjusted for work hours, were down 17%. On the customer side, on page 116, there were a dozen fewer customer injuries this year through April compared to last year, a 21% decrease, and adjusted for ridership, a 20% decrease in injuries per million rides. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I to notice that. Well, anyway, the way the Long Island Railroad keeps its numbers and yours is different. You have this FRA category, and I'm just wondering why Metro North chooses to do. What does that mean, FRA reportable and percent?
The Federal Railroad Administration has very specific criteria for the kinds of cases that we report to them. The Long Island Railroad also complies with these same reporting regulations and keeps exactly the same statistics. I think we simply have been reporting them.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the Long Island better, if that means anything. No, because it's more. I don't know why we need to see the FRA. If there was a reason, that's fine. The other issue is that Metro North shows no, I believe it's no gap incidents this year?
Reportable gap
incidents. Yeah. Okay. I want to say I don't believe it, but an increase in slip, trip, and fall. So I'm wondering if some gap incidents might be classified as slip, trip, and fall.
Now, we're very careful when it comes to classification of gap incidents because of their relatively
Yeah.
high profile. So I don't think we're misclassifying. Again, the reportable cases, it's a bit misleading because there's a significant lag time for customer injuries as to when we get the information that allows us to classify them as reportable. So there's often several months lag in that process. So I think you have to let the numbers mature a little bit before you can really comment on them. We certainly have had instances where people have gone into the gap and have had minor injuries. At this point, none of them has been classified as requiring medical attention beyond first aid, which is the criteria for reportability.
Oh, okay. When we look at the Long Island Railroad report, does it? In other words, if someone reports that I fell in the gap and they got first aid, does that show on this report?
Yes. In other words, if
Well, okay, so it does show, Ray.
yeah.
But Metro North wouldn't show that.
No, we show both numbers, actually.
That's what you mean by total, and then
Right.
what we talked about was FRA.
Correct.
That doesn't make FRA report, but it makes your report.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, so you show 3 here.
Yeah,
Okay.
we include everything in the total number, yeah.
Okay, I got it. Okay, I don't know what we should look at this and whether the board needs to see FRA or not, but that's not your. You're happily leaving us. Enjoy retirement. Thank you
very much.
Thank you. Susan?
Well, first of all, I like the Metro North presentation. And you do have FRA in Long Island Railroad?
Yeah, I know, but do we need to see it? Was that?
Oh, I think it's an important criteria
Okay.
because it's what's reported to the government. So that's what I want to see. And it allows us to compare amongst other railroads.
Okay.
I wanted to note, Mark, that this month really shows us that we've gotten over a hurdle that we ran into last month, and I'm very happy for you because it means you're ending on the up that you well deserve to have because you've worked so hard to get our numbers under control. So it's good to see that last year was a blip. And congratulations. I hope you have a wonderful retirement.
Yes. On behalf of everyone in Metro North, Mark, the same.
My only question is, do we have to report his retirement to FRA? Does it meet the criteria?
Right. It's not an injury, though,
Oh,
Mitch.
well, just to us, it's an
Right,
injury.
right,
Just to
right.
us. Congratulations.
Be careful as you leave the building.
Okay, we
Okay.
have one just a report on heating and air conditioning.
Yep.
Bob, do you?
HVAC information is outlined on page 119 of the agenda book. All fleets, you can see from the charts, were above the 98% target. You'll also note that there's been a rising trend since 2004, and that obviously coincides with a decreasing number of complaints with respect to AC and heat. So that's it.
Good. Okay.
Again, Bob, I would suggest that perhaps in the box with each of the car types, that we indicate the number of cars that are impacted, so that when you see an M2 spike, as you do here, you can relate it to the number of cars that are causing that spike.
The number of cars that are in each fleet.
Yeah, I think, by the way, Jim, if you look at 121, I think it tries to do that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Police report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're up 11 incidents, 123 versus 112, and that's mainly due to credit card fraud usage on the, unfortunately, in the Metro North line in District 5 and District 6, credit card fraud. Long Island Railroad is -9 for the year, and conversely, Metro North is +9. We've had 72 arrests year to date. And 72 arrests for May, and then also summonses. We issued 754 summonses. That's criminal summonses and moving violations as well. And through March, through June 1st, we've reduced the overtime by 25%. That's it.
Any questions on the police report? Okay. Michael.
Good morning. Good morning.
Just wanted to, I think it's working. Huh?
Go ahead.
Just report on the our construction and how it proceeds. In Manhattan, one of our TBM machines completed its final drive, and the second one will resume mining this week. This was after a planned shutdown. And we continued excavation in the cavern with the first section of the road header mining. This is the big machine, the big monster with the lots of wheels in the front. That is completed, and the daytime blasting within the cavern also began in early June. The 47 East 44th Street, this is the building next to us here that you see on 44th Street, the sidewalk closed, has been demolished, and excavation has now begun for the future ventilation facility. As well, the street work has also begun at the 50th Street vent facility. This is primarily utility work that precedes most of our construction work. In Queens, the Queens Board tunnel contractor continued making repairs to the slurry walls, and excavation has now begun. Excavation in the open cut, in effect, will start in July with some rock excavation. The fabrication of the TBM is on schedule, and the TBM substation is being ready to be energized. That's an important step. Earlier this month, and this is quite important, we received preliminary approval from Amtrak. Normally hard to get, but it seems that we're moving ahead with that on the civil portion of our dock bank reconstruction. And final approval and concurrent negotiation of the contract mods will be completed within the months. This will open up a major portion of the Harvard construction work that is so important, while in fact the railroads, both Amtrak and Long Island Railroad, are continuing their operation and hopefully with no hitches that the public will observe our construction. The demolition on the Matura building commenced in Queens, and this area will be turned over to the Queens Board tunneling contractor in order to construct the yard lead tunnel reception pit. To date, we have drawn basically about 80%, 158 million of 195 million in our stimulus funds for the East Side access. And last but not least, I think not only that we are welcoming the Rail Activation Working Group, but it really signifies a new stage on our project. We're going to be moving little by little from the construction into the preparatory stages that are needed to start Long Island Railroad operation readiness. So that's really very important, and kind of I want to make sure that you understand the significance. It's not just that we are cooperating, but it's really a good cause. We have right now about close to 60% of the funds for the project have been committed to construction, and therefore readiness, preparation for operation readiness are very important. That's about it.
Any questions on East Side access? Okay, good month for that as construction proceeds. Excellent. Procurements. Alina, Long Island Railroad first.
There are 3 procurements in this month's package totaling $12.14 million. They are all non-competitive, and they appear on page 138 in the book. I'm just going to take a moment to highlight one of them, and it is a renewal contract to New York State Industries for the Disabled in the amount of $10.4 million for janitorial services at Long Island Railroad's Penn Station and West Side Yard facilities for a 3-year period from July 1, 2010 through June 30th, 2013. Also, we are asking you to retroactively ratify a 4-month extension of the previous contract with New York State Industries for Disabled in the amount of $1.3 million. And that was a result of the extended negotiations that we've had with them. We did have multiple rounds of negotiations. Through that, Long Island Railroad was able to affect savings in excess of $2.5 million from their original proposal, resulting in a new contract that is 8% less than the expiring contract. New York State Industries for the Disabled is a preferred source as defined by Section 162 of the New York State Finance Law. We're obligated to award this contract to them, provided that their costs are within 15% of the current market value. We, of course, want to ensure that they're going to meet the ongoing requirements for Penn Station without lessening the workforce availability that has kept the quality of Penn Station at the high level that it's been at. So while I think we're very successful in negotiating, we also will go forward, carefully monitoring workforce usage at Penn Station, so that we ensure the restrooms remain at the high level they've been at. So with that, we ask for a vote on the non-competitive procurements.
Any questions on the non-competitive procurement for the railroad? Motion to approve? Second? All in favor? Aye? Okay. Howard?
Okay, we have one, the Harris Stratix Network. This is the one-time upgrade to the Metro North, our network management system. Basically, this is we expanded the system, so we need to upgrade the system to match some new node points. And it's fundamentally they are the original supplier and they are the maintainer, so we to go with them. We also had a procurement, I believe we're still in the book, St. Francis, which we're pulling back, and we'll be talking about that in July.
Okay, so we're only doing the one.
Yes.
Any questions on Harris Stratic? Motion to approve? Second? All in favor? Aye? Okay. Michael?
David, could you cover that, please?
Good morning. Capital Construction has a total of 2 procurement items to present to the committee this month. There are no non-competitive capital construction items and 2 competitive items totaling $5,228,500. The first item is for a modification to contract CQ031, that's the Queens Board Tunnel contract for East Side Access Project, for an increase to an allowance item to repair an existing slurry wall. The request is in the amount of $5 million. The second item is for a modification to contract FM216, which is an electrical contract for the East Side Access Project. This modification is to reroute electrical conduits to another location. This is a 2-part modification. Part 1, which is for the purchase of the material in the amount of $228,882.30 was previously executed. We are seeking board approval for Part 2, which is for the labor and equipment for the installation of the material in the amount of $228,500. This would bring the total modification to the amount of $452,382.30, which exceeds the board threshold of $250,000.
Any questions on either of these 2 items? Motion to approve? Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Any other business to come before the committee today? If not, motion to adjourn. Thank you all very much. We'll see you in July.
Thank you.
We move.
You run a good meeting, Mitch.